in love.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park, and thank you for joining us here on this Wednesday afternoon on Gulfstream Today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney, and Ron Nicoletti is off today. He'll be back tomorrow and throughout the weekend, but we've got lots of excitement today and a really big carryover in the Super High Five.
We do. We'll show you our wagering menu in a moment, but yes, $112,000 plus in the Super High Five, which does start in the first race today, but they hit the Rainbow Six on Sunday. Somebody was very happy going home with more than $210,000. So pretty nice way to round out the weekend.
It really was. And yes, as we look at today's card, we have 11 races on tap. We'll go now to our wagering menu. And of course, we start things off in the opener. That rolling Super High Five that we were mentioning, $112,000. And race one, of course, does kick off the 50-cent early pick five. As we move along to the sixth race on this 11 race program, that 20-cent Rainbow Six does kick off, and as we mentioned, it was hit last Sunday, so we start from scratch today in the sequence. But it is a fun sequence. We'll talk about it momentarily, and we get to race 7 on today's card, and that, of course, kicks off the 50-cent late pick five. So Acacia will have tickets for those pick fives, and as usual, we start off with that pick five. Acacia, it is fast and firm and a beautiful afternoon here in South Florida.
Absolutely beautiful. Supposed to be pretty hot today, so let's see if we can heat things up with my pick five ticket. No single in the early pick five, but did keep it affordable for $48, using 2 horses in here to start it off. Money Market, of course, is the horse to beat, but I'm backing myself up with Bay Point Count. Spreading in the second race, going to be using 4 horses in there. 2 horses in the next, I think, doing the Watusi. Again, the horse to beat, but also using Solidaire. 3 in the fourth and 2 in the fifth. Again, $48.
Nice affordable ticket. Hopefully getting a nice bankroll to maybe tackle the pick 6 or the late pick 5 as well. So today's opener, we do start it off, and as you said, the number 5 Money Market's potentially going to go off as a short price favorite right now. Early money making this horse at 7-5, and I believe we have a stat here for this type of move with Brendan Walsh.
We do. This horse is dropping from 12-5 non-winners of 2 to the 62.50 level, and Brendan Walsh in the past 5 years with a 50% tag drop in dirt sprints. It's a small sample size, but he's 2 for 7 and 4 for 7 in the money at a positive ROI of 277. And this was a horse that had shown quite a bit of early speed early on in his career. And since moving back into the barn of Brendan Walsh's last 2 starts, on paper it looks like he really hasn't. But one of them was on the turf, and last time out he was far back early, and he did have to steady at the 3/16 pole. Not entirely sure if it was just because he was breaking from the outside last time that he didn't show that normal speed, but he did kind of have to tap on the brakes last time as well, so that's why I'm giving him another chance with the class drop.
And me too. I couldn't get really excited about anybody else in here. I know this horse was beaten over 8 lengths against slightly tougher company, but I think the troubled trip was it did have an impact on him overall, and I'm hoping he just reverts to his previous speed. I did like the 7 Comsafu a little bit, just because I know that this horse did take quite some time to break his maiden. Finally did it last time out at the bottom level, but prior to that, this horse was facing much tougher company. Maiden 20,000, maiden 35, even maiden special weight company at one point last year. So I think he just really needed the drop in class.
Maybe he did, and tactically speaking, if he sits a bit closer to the pace, that could shake out well for him, and that's kind of what I was thinking with Nacho Giant as well, especially if our top selection Money Market doesn't show that speed that he used to show. Nacho Giant to the outside has some speed as well, and last time it seemed like several kind of wanted the lead, and that kind of set up for the winner Sky God to close. He's certainly not the most consistent type, but I do like him going a bit shorter and sprinting, so that's why I threw him on there.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
That's it.
That is today's opener as we get to the second race. $25,000 non-winners of 2 lifetime conditions, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf. Scratch the one, Salt Mine, a horse that I did use. And your top selection in here, the 4 Power Driven, I really wanted to pick this horse on top. I don't know why I didn't, but maybe has a little bit of sneaky turf form.
He certainly might, and that's why I picked him. And it was just kind of what you were saying earlier. Sometimes you just can't really get excited about some of the horses that do look to be the logical ones. The 3 Final Encore certainly will take some money. I just had a couple reservations about that horse going the 2 turns on the turf and stepping up first off the claim. Certainly from the Maker Barn and Jose Ortiz in the saddle, he could win for fun today. But I was kind of looking for a little bit of a better price. And as you said, some sneaky turf form for sure. His only turf start for Power Driven was actually in Stakes Company at Laurel, where he did go a mile and a 16th too. And he was bumped and knocked off stride at the break. So he was completely done after that. So that's his only kind of turf race to go off of. His half-sister, though, is a 5-time winner on the turf. He's by Harlan's Holiday and now a fresh gelding.
And we could see that that was the first time actually that Scooter Dickey trained this horse. And I thought, okay, well, if he had all of those hiccups and the first time on the turf, why not try him on the turf again? He's had some dirt performances in the meantime. They haven't been great. Maybe this horse is tailing off, or maybe he will wake up once again on the turf. So I think at the right price, this is an interesting horse to bet. The connections going from dirt to turf at a claiming level, only 2 wins out of 13 starts, whereas the 3 Final Encore, I know this horse is going to be a short price favorite, especially with the rail horse being scratched. But first off the claim with Turf Sprinters, Mike Maker, he's 26%. That's out of 53 horses, positive ROI, almost half of the time finishing in the money. And yes, the question is, can this horse get the 2 turns? 7.5 furlongs, much different than 5 furlongs, but he was just kind of so slow last time out that I think this will get back to maybe him showing a little bit more speed. I think it's encouraging that Jose Ortiz is named to ride too.
It definitely is, and you're right about the fact that he will have to show some more speed. A couple starts back when he was running against a bit tougher against those 30,000 condition claimers, he did show a bit more speed, and hopefully he'll go back to that, because I think that he will in order to have to be impressive. Because I went back and watched some of his longer distance races, even going 2 turns here at Gulfstream when he was with Ralph Nix, and just kind of faded and didn't look really comfortable going that distance. So we'll see if off the claim he does take a step forward. But Gabby, I think we have to talk about Old Sport, because I know this is a horse that's been haunting you a bit in the past couple starts.
We don't have to talk about him because I'll get angry. No. Old Sport, you know, he had an awful trip 2 starts back. He should have won for fun, but the last time out when I actually went against him thinking that, you know, he's not going to put in the same type of performance, and that race actually came up much tougher than the $30,000 race that he ran prior to that here at Gulfstream. He was bet off of that trouble trip in the race prior, and I didn't really see much excuse last time out.
No, and he does cut back a little bit to the 7.5 furlongs once again today. I think that perhaps this might be a little bit more manageable field than he found last time, especially as you mentioned with the scratch of Salt Mine. So we'll see if he takes a step forward. I still couldn't put him on top of after those last 2 races.
Neither can I. As we get to the 3rd race on the card, a 62.59 winners of 2 lifetime event, going the 1-turn mile on the main track and doing the Watusi. Well, this horse is definitely going to win today because Ron's not here to do the Watusi.
Of course. That's what we keep saying. If this horse wins, then Ron will have to do the Watusi for us, because that was in his time period, if you will. So maybe we'll just have to YouTube it instead if doing the Watusi wins. But trying the dirt for the first time today and dropping to the lowest level she's ever competed at, The Dam was actually a stakes winner, sprinting on the dirt. And this horse has some speed too, I think, especially with the rail post. It looks like that'll be advantageous for her.
I think she'll probably go from the rail, and hoping she shows the same amount of speed as she did last time out. And Mike Matt's going from turf to dirt with his claimers. He's 4 for 17, 24%, and it's just shy of a positive ROI, but they do win. And of course, this filly is bred to handle the main track. Other than her, I guess we should talk about the 5 Solidaire. She's one that could be forwardly placed too, although I kind of prefer her maybe using a target and stalking, and that's probably going to be doing the Watusi. She could maybe sit that stalking trip.
She could, and that's probably the only other alternative, I think, on paper in this race. And she was a distant second last time out. Really did not perform well at all 2 starts back when switching from the turf to the dirt, and she did take money as well, given the fact that she broke her maiden so impressively on a sloppy track when she'd been consistently running on a turf. So we'll see what kind of price she is today. I do expect her probably to sit right behind doing the Watusi, and she certainly could hit the board in here.
Okay, that's the 3rd race on the card. The 6 Toother Bell, obviously one that does fit, just seems sometimes to be a little bit one pace, but if that pace comes back to her, or if some of the turf horses that we were mentioning don't like the dirt, she'll be sitting and waiting in the catbird seat here as we get to the 4th race, an open $35,000 claiming event, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf. And I believe we have a video spotlight replay here going back to Market Outlook, and this is a horse that will be bet off of his race in the Emerald and last time out, and the fact that he's cutting back in distance from 9 furlongs. And I didn't like this horse coming out of his last race just because I thought that he had an absolutely perfect trip in the Emerald. And people are going to say, oh, he was beaten just a half length behind Keystone for Victory, who came back to win again. But he hugged the rail the entire time this day. We can see him down on the inside and just didn't look like he wanted to pass Keystone for Victory.
I thought the same thing. He just would not go by most of the other horses that were really putting in good performance, and perhaps after encountering some troubled trips were closing on the outside. And he wasn't smushed along the rail either. He had space. He had plenty of open room there. So I used him in second. You used him in third. I thought he's definitely one to respect, but we both decide to go elsewhere. I used the number 8, Eminent Force, who's rebounding now, hopefully, and going back to a level where he has been competitive. He actually was in great form, 3 wins in a row, and then they stepped him up in class, and unfortunately it was rained off the turf last time. He dumped his rider right at the start. Edgar Prado was fine after there, but that, of course, that was it. You just put a big line through that, and I'm hoping he goes back to some of the races that he had before that.
And he does seem to have some speed from the outside, so maybe he'll be the fastest of all, or could just sit that pressing trip, a good post to be in with his running style. But the one, my point exactly, I landed on him today because of the dramatic post change. This horse was so hindered by his post position last time out. Again, you do not want post 12 going 7.5 furlongs, and that's exactly what he got. He was about 5 wide going into the first turn, maybe wider than that, and there was nothing that Tyler could have done that day. Just it was the hand that he was dealt, unfortunately. So on top of that, I thought that he was kind of pushed along a little bit too much early, and then the pace fell apart, setting it up for closers like Siding Spring and Rapscallion, and he was just wide the entire race. So now with Jose Ortiz, rail post position, pretty much same conditions. I thought that last race was actually a very strong race for the level. So all things to like about my point exactly. That's where I landed.
And he does get a little class drop too, I think, going from that 25 allowance optional claiming race. And as you said, it was tough for the level, and he did have to deal with the outside. So perhaps now coming back over to this spot, a horse that does look like he's on the upswing, and I actually altered my pick 5 ticket to use him, was the number 3 Sportscaster. He is stepping up, but I think he's been in very good form and really proved himself last time.
And I don't know what to make of that last race because, you know, he kind of topped out sometimes at 80 Beyer speed figure. He did get an 88 Beyer speed figure on the good going at Saratoga back of August of last year. And then he comes with a beautiful win last time out. That was against open $16,000 claimer. So maybe the drop in class last time out served as a kind of encouragement to step him back to higher levels today. I did think that the pace kind of fell apart apart, but he did make the first move into that pace that collapsed. So I do think that his last race was pretty legitimate.
I think you can definitely go off of that, and he looks like he's been working really well since, too. Even just his last work on the Palm Meadows turf course on February 7th, 5 furlongs and 59 flat. So it does look like he's coming in sharp, and as I said, he might just be finally moving in the right direction that he should be.
And we have the 7 Chamois horse that you and I both kind of use. And at one point, he was 3rd in the Grade 2 Dixie on Preakness weekend. But it just doesn't look like he's the same horse as he used to be.
And that's kind of what I thought, too. I threw him on there in my top picks. But first off, the claim last time for David Jacobson. They tried the dirt, the inner track at Aqueduct. He now comes back to the turf where he has had all of his victories. All 4 of his wins have come on the grass. And the last time he was on turf, it was yielding going at Aqueduct back in December. So we'll see now 3rd off the layoff in the surface, which will help him.
It makes sense because he's clearly a horse that can't run very well on the dirt. So David Jacobson doing the right thing and sending him down here for the turf. As we turn the page, we'll get to race 5, a maiden 12,500 events, 6 furlongs on the main track, and scratch the 3 and the 7 in here. And not much left to choose from, but the 5 Bourbon City is where we both land, and I think we have a stat for Dale.
We do. We'll stat on Dale Romans going turf to dirt in maiden claiming races at Gulfstream. 2 for 8 and 3 for 8 in the money. Again, it's not the biggest sample size, and it is a positive ROI. Now, this stat was going to be, I think, a bit more noteworthy with equine perfection being present in here, but he is scratched out, and I thought that was one of the probably the only other horse to really take money in this field. So I think with the class drop, and especially if you look just at the dirt races for Bourbon City, his first 2 dirt races were in maiden special weight company. So if you're looking just on that form, going from maiden special weight to 12.5 is a very significant drop. So it does look like he might be in the right place today.
And I've always thought that this horse is better at 1 turn. I wrote a note the first time that I saw him back on the 5th of January, remembered 7.5 furlongs is 2 turns here on the turf. So not only is he dropping in class, getting back to the dirt, but he's also cutting back to a 1-turn distance, which I think will only help him. And Dale Roman's just having a fantastic meet with Corey Lannery. The only other horse, the 2 Mongolian Dancer, sometimes when I'm playing pick 5 or something, I really like to use the logical horse and then maybe a first-time starter, because sometimes that's all you need is a horse that hasn't started before. And he's actually got a pretty decent pedigree. The mare, she was stakes place going long on the dirt. This horse, and she could sprint too, so maybe this is a horse that you could throw in.
Maybe it is, and that's why I did end up putting this one on. I actually had him in my top 3 all along. I did have some interest, and especially, as you said, with these maiden 12.5 races, a first-time starter who just perhaps has the least amount of excuses built up so far might be the one to come in and surprise everybody. Does get Lasix for the debut.
All right, well, that is races 1 through 5. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive into the 20-cent Rainbow 6 and the late pick 5 right after this.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Gabby Gaudette alongside Acacia Courtney. And race 6, of course, kicks off the 20-cent Rainbow 6 on this 11-race program. It was hit. It was taken down last Sunday, so we start from scratch here today. But I did find a single, and it's an 8-to-1 single. That didn't work out for me last weekend, but we're going to try it again. I don't learn very quickly. I'm going to be using 3 horses to start things off in this maiden special weight, the 2, 3, and the 6. using 4 horses in the 7th. I thought that's where you wanted some coverage. In the 8th race, going to be singling the number 10 horse in there, and I think you and I both picked that horse, going 2 by 2 and then spreading in the last race with 5 horses. I thought that race was pretty impossible. So interested to see your take on the late pick 5 sequence. We'll get to that in a few moments, but first, this nice maiden special weight. We're going 6 furlongs onto the main track, and we will get into some nice pedigrees here, especially with first-time starters. But first, I wanted to mention the 3 Diamond Jim, and we'll go back and take a look at this horse's performance. It was his first start last time out. This was on the 4th of January, and you can see a sloppy track. It wasn't even sealed that day, and he broke out of the gate. He's the number 3 horse in this race, and he breaks kind of, I don't know, I thought he broke kind of lethargically, and then he's rushed up here under Johnny Velasquez, and then there's just not a whole lot of room, and it almost looks like he reacts to maybe the kickback on the backstretch. Very green, the horse to his outside stumbles, and therefore he kind of sucks back out of it. So I'm hoping that today he's a little less green, but that was a really productive race. We saw Malagasi come back to win an allowance with a 96 Spire speed figure on Sunday, and of course Lenstar breaking his maiden against Maiden Special Weight Company too.
Definitely flattered him. I think you have to use Diamond Jim. I did pick against him today with Chad Brown, first-time starter, but he certainly could come and blow away the field again today. It's listed as a sloppy sealed track that day, and it wasn't as sloppy as some of the other wet tracks we've seen, so I don't know if that maybe hurt or helped any of the horses in there. But as you said, those other 2 horses coming back to win, especially how impressive Malagasi has been in really backing up that runaway of 15-length maiden win, definitely flatters Diamond Jim. For Todd Pletcher, in dirt sprints with second career start, it is actually a negative ROI, though they do win. It's not one of his most fruitful moves in the dirt sprint. I kind of took a little bit of another wait and see, but as you said, definitely one that could just blow away the field. I really did like Switzerland for Chad Brown in here, the first-time starter. I like the work tab, and I like the pedigree as well. The dam was multiple stakes winner and graded stakes place, and she did win at first asking as well. He's a 3-year-old by Speightstown.
And according to some of the Clocker reports, apparently the source is the real deal. So this is a horse that you definitely want to use in the first leg of the Rainbow Sixes. It's sometimes not how fast you're going, it's how you're going fast, to quote Richard Migliori. It's always a saying that he uses, and apparently his workouts have really, really been pretty sharp up there at Palmetto. So beautiful pedigree, high price purchase at the sale. Switzerland is a must-use in my opinion.
Quickly, sorry, before we change on that, do you want to show a stat on Chad Brown? First-time starters on the dirt at Gulfstream, because we talk so much about Chad Brown on the turf. When looking just at Gulfstream, it's very strong here, and that kind of solidified me using this horse too. 18% win, 53% in the money, and a 263 ROI. So sometimes interesting to point that out when we do see so much perhaps at other tracks or on other surfaces.
And it's funny to see that, because that's probably from the past 5 years, I would imagine. And I think this year alone, Chad has only maybe started 3 horses on the main track. Yep. He's obviously won with one of them in the Swale. So a very strong stat there for the barn. And we also have another first-time starter in the 2 Matter of Factor by the Factor, and actually is kin to a grade 3 winner, but that was going long on the turf. The horse is also a grade 1 place on the turf. That's Go for North. But John Service with his first-time starter sprinting on dirt, just 15% and just shy of a positive ROI.
And you always, I think you always respect what comes out of this barn too. And the most recent work was pretty sharp up at Palmetto's. Jose Ortiz gets the call. I think that those are the 3 horses in here, certainly, that do look the most exciting. It's a small field, but it looks to be definitely a very strong field.
I absolutely agree. That does start the 20-cent Rainbow Six as we turn the page to the 7th race, kicking off the final pick 5 of the day, this non-winners of 3 lifetime. How did you see the sequence?
All right, well, I did something I don't remember the last time I've done, and I singled right off in the first leg, trying to keep it affordable. I guess this is perhaps a Ron Nicoletti single type today. I'm going to single the number 5, Rora Ema, here to kick things off in the 7th race. I thought this race went between her and Leopard's Hill Road. Leopard's Hill Road is a scratch today, so just using that one, hopefully that gets me off the ground. 3 deep in the next 3 races, excuse me. I do think, of course, Gallia in the 9th will take quite a bit of money, but using Love V Ross and Champagne Problems too. And then I'm also spreading in the finale. That's a tough race to close things out. $54.
All right, $54 singling in the first leg. I used 4 horses in this leg just because these, sometimes they're just so unreliable. And I do think that Aurora Ema is the horse to beat, but she is also 2 for 24.
She is indeed, and like I said, it's a bit of a guesswork here to start things off, but I guess I'll know right off the bat whether I'm alive or whether I'm out in the pick 5. So, but this horse, she's been running consistently at the mile. She had to go pretty wide last time as well, and she did manage to get a second, beaten just by a length and 3/4 behind a pretty solid runner in Grand Chama. So that's why I did give her the nod today, and hopefully that consistency will put her in the winner's circle today.
And the more I look at this race, I'm thinking to myself, who the heck is going to be the speed in here? We could see the 7, Miss Visconti, maybe show some speed. She showed speed 2 starts back, or even Sensational Saturday, but it doesn't look like she wants to go this distance. I mean, I thought Leopard's Hill Road was going to be figured to be part of the speed in here. So that was kind of the concern with a horse like Aurora Ema, is that she sometimes is pace dependent. And we have the 2, Felina Song, who doesn't show a lot of speed at this distance either. So it's going to be an interesting race, but best of luck to your single. If it wins, then I will still move along to the next leg of the Rainbow Six as well. So Aurora Ema to kick things off in the pick 5. We'll get to the 8th race to kick off the final pick 4 of the day, and we're going a mile on the turf course here. And I think we wanted to go back and show a spotlight replay here of Ortiga and Vendita coming out of the same race. Just the final couple of yards here from the quarter pole to the finish. We can see the 2, Vendita, setting the pace here, and the number 5, Ortiga, coming after her. Now, Ortiga was actually the favorite in there, and I actually thought that she got kind of a good setup and just couldn't deliver there.
I thought so too, and that's kind of why I use this horse, but not really on the top end of my ticket. I totally agree. I think it was a good setup for Ortiga as well. She's been working well. She had dropped to that claiming level last time, so I put her on in 3rd. And of course, Vendita does look like she's going to be the speed. She had stretched out from 5 furlongs to the mile again last time, and she kind of faded a little bit, but I do think hopefully if she can harness that speed perhaps and maintain it a little bit better, that'll definitely be to her advantage. But we both did use the 10 play the break, and I know that this was your single in here going from Starter Allowance Company.
It is, and talking about bold singles, she is that. But I know she draws a kind of a tough post position for the distance. She's way to the outside, but Jose Ortiz is in the saddle. They stepped her up against tougher company, against Starter Allowance Company last time. She gets back to the right level. She notched her non-winners of 2 starts back at the $30,000 level. And all of that said, I also think that this race just sets up for her. We have Sober on Sunday, who's going to show speed. We have the horse that we were just talking, Vendita, towards the inside that has a lot of speed. Ortiga's going to be stalking. So overall, it looks like maybe a contentious pace, and she's just probably going to be rolling late, at least hopefully.
I would imagine she will, and to the outside, perhaps she can settle into a good position early and just make that big move at the end. But a horse that I do think will probably stalk and does have to improve off of those last races, but gets class relief. And second off an 8-month layoff is the number 7, Giants Jewel. And we'll show a trainer stat on Tom Bush in the past 5 years, going from allowance to claiming and second off the layoff. So exactly this kind of move. He's 3 for 7 and 5 for 7 in the money with an ROI of more than $3. So he hasn't done this a lot, but when he has had quite a bit of success with it.
And this horse definitely fits the bill too. She's got some back class. nice, classy 7-year-old mare. The only thing, she is 2 for 29 on the turf, so sometimes the wins are a little bit infrequent. So
Yes.
I did have a little bit more confidence in just using the 10 play the break in there. So hopefully we get through that leg as we get to the 9th race to kick off the final pick 3 of the day. A nice allowance optional claimer, 6.5 furlongs onto the main track. And we wanted to show a spotlight replay of just Galia, and her performance last time out was pretty impressive, but she was heavily bet in there. She was 60 cents to the dollar. She's clearly a very nicely bred filly. She's $600,000 purchase by Medaglia d'Oro, and she just looked very well prepared first time out.
She did, and Day by Day was kind of a speed type and was pretty much with her the whole time, the 2-horse that day, and then Galia just pulled away very easily. I think that she did meet kind of a manageable maiden special weight field for sure, and it was an open length win, of course, and I thought that she did it very nicely. Again, just thought that it was a pretty perfect setup for her. She was very well prepared and thought there might be a couple other options in here at perhaps a better price.
And I think that was the case, was that nobody else, I know it's a Todd first-time starter, but there was really nobody else in there that you kind of wanted, so that's why she went off as a heavy favorite. And maybe there are some other horses who are coming out of stronger fields, and one of them could be the 7 Champagne Problems for Ian Wilkes.
And that's why I did land on this one, because I do think that she's coming out of stronger races. And last time out, she comes out of a race at Keeneland that did produce 2 next out winners. That was where she broke her maiden. The second place finisher, Torrent, went on to break her maiden and then be multiple stakes placed after that for sure. So I think that she's coming out of some good races. She had found a muddy track prior to that, and the 7 furlongs last time seemed to work out well for her. So I do like her at this 6.5, and she's been working well. We'll show a stat on trainer Ian Wilkes in the past 5 years with maiden wins last time out on the dirt. He is 3 for 8 and 4 for 8 in the money with a 352 ROI. So maybe this is a filly that can take that next step forward right away.
And yes, I think she did improve getting to the fast main track at Keeneland. It was a good race. It did look like the pace setter was going pretty fast in that race. You can see 22 and change, 45 and change for the half too. And then she looked like she was getting a little bit weary-legged coming down the stretch, and Champagne Problems really took advantage of that kind of scenario. I thought a great ride by Calvin Burrell too, but she is coming out of a good race. As you said, it's been productive. I'm going to give the one Levi Ross one more shot here, and she's never tried a fast main track. I liked her last time out to try to beat Bodie's Dream and Wildcat Kate, but she just looks like a horse that prefers to go to the lead, and she actually had kind of a really awkward break, and I thought that that really hurt her in that race.
It definitely did, and as you mentioned, she's had the misfortune of being on a sloppy track in both of her races. It managed to provide an open length win in her debut, and then she tried the house party last time, and just as you said, she likes to be on the front end, but Wildcat Kate and Bodie's Dream are both speed types, and they're pretty classy fillies that have accomplished a lot already. So I think she was kind of up against it, especially after the break, and I definitely think that she's one to respect in this field.
One more shot, because I think that she does have some class there, and she might just pop out of the gate and when it's all said and done, wire the field. But I do think it's necessary, especially from the rail, for her to be on the lead today. We also have the 3 Modacious, a horse throwing in at the bottom of my ticket here. She did break her maiden by open lengths at Parks, and it was a productive race, and I thought that it was good that she broke from the outside post. She was wide. She did still show the ability to rate. I'm just not so sure if she can transfer that form down to here.
She will have to kind of take a step forward, I think. I use the number 10, Sadie Be Good, to the outside, who does have an outside post in here for Kieran McLaughlin, but got to a fast main track and added the blinkers last time, and she still looked a bit green, but she did win by 6 lengths.
That is race 9 as we get to the 10th race, a maiden $20,000 race, 5 furlongs onto the turf, and I think that the 2 Midnight Tail could be maybe the horse to beat here. She was second first time out after a troubled start, getting to the turf for the first time for Joe Sharp.
And it was a sloppy main track last time as well here at Gulfstream. She will try the turf for the first time, as you mentioned, and you have these other 2 horses in Flashy Val and Southern and Sassy who've just taken turns beating each other in the last couple of races. So I decided to kind of step away from those two and look for an alternative. So this was the one that I landed on. First time turf for Joe Sharp is not the strongest move, but I don't think she meets the strongest field either.
And that was the stat that kind of made me go back to Flashy Val one more time, because it isn't a strong stat for Joe Sharp, and he doesn't really do it frequently either. Although I do use her in the exacta. The 4 Flashy Val, though, now picks up Luis Saez. Third start off of the layoff. She could be primed and ready to go here, too. She didn't get awful trips in her past 2 starts, but like I said, sometimes these middle level or claiming level races on the turf, so Luis Saez is someone you want to have in your camp.
That'll definitely be, I think, an advantage for Flashy Val in here. And as I said, she finished third behind Southern and Sassy last time, second ahead of Southern and Sassy 2 starts back. So they're 2 pretty consistent runners. I definitely think that 5 furlongs on the turf is the place to be. So the rider switch just might make all the difference.
And other than that, it's kind of hard to really conjure an opinion about any other runner in the field. So us kind of sticking to the same horses there in the 10th race as we get to today's nightcap. Race 11, we're going out to the turf at 7.5 furlongs. Maiden $25,000 race, and I thought that you could maybe get a little bit creative in this final race of the day. Cape Apache was one that you wanted for Dave Casson.
I did, and if you remember, I think both of us spread in this final race because you can get creative, or maybe it'll just jump out and the logical horse might be the one to win. The logical horse probably being the 8 Classic Move for Shug McGahee, but I remember last time that Classic Move was just really, really warm beforehand. It stepped back up to maiden special weight, now trying the turf for the first time and going all the way down to maiden 25. I used this horse in the top 3, but I looked elsewhere, and I landed on Cape Apache, who does get, I think, a positive rider switch to Joel Rosario in here, and had tried the 7.5 furlongs going the 2 turns last time. Had to be a bit wide as well. Now does have to deal with a more outside post in the 7.5 furlongs, which is pretty short to the first turn, so that's my main concern. But just as you said, I think we might be able to get some nicer prices in this last race.
I'm really grasping at straws in this last race because we have the 6 Moreno Mojo was the horse that I landed on for Eric Gio. I can remember seeing this horse first time out and thinking, hey, he kind of has a turf foot. Maybe he'd like the turf, and today is his day to shine, hopefully, because he really has not shown anything on the main track in the past 2 starts, but is listed as a first-time gelding today, and we have no stats to really back up this type of move with Eric Gio. With first-time turf maidens, he's 0 for 27, so my thinking is that he's definitely due for this type of move to be successful, but I just had a note on the horse, so I wanted to try. I had some interest in him. And then we also have the 7 Milo Diamond, who could be set up for a good race here today. You like this horse in the exacta?
Definitely could, and after that last race, again stretching out to the 2 turns for the first time, did have to steady a little bit and was up along the rail, so that could be a good priming race for this one coming in. Again, just had some reservations about the favorites and trying to look elsewhere in this last race, but it's a wide open one to close things out.
It really is. I even used the 1 Geopolitical to the inside, a first-time starter by Gio Ponte, and the mare actually has produced 2 other turf winners, so sometimes that's all that you need in a real post position. Going 7.5 has actually been quite successful too, but that's a wrap for us. That's races 1 through 11. We have that big carryover in that super high 5, and that does kick off in the first race. It's $112,000 in that super high 5 carryover, so dive on into that action. We're going to step aside, and Pete Aiello will be up next with those scratches and changes. Good luck.
We have to take care of these horses that, give us so much joy.